welcome to the Boy Time Podcast. I'm the Porco Rosso, back at it again with a new episode, joined by Babby. We have a slam dunk episode, as always. We took a week off because I bought tickets to see Scott Pilgrim versus the World in theaters, and they were on our podcast recording day, and I forgot until the night before. So, whoops. So no regular episode, but last week I did do a little Boy Time mini comparing the original Resident Evil 4 with the Resident Evil 4 remake. I wanted to make that its own thing, mostly to make this episode not 2.5 hours long. And I'm glad I did, because that mini ended up being around an hour on its own. So I'm glad I did that. So if you're interested in that, there's a whole video about it, or podcast, both. But yeah, I am playing Resident Evil 7 right now, which is maybe the worst decision I have ever made in my entire life.
Never touching that game.
That it is messing me up. I basically had to play it in like little intervals of like 15 to 20 minutes and then stepping away for a little bit, because it is rough, especially the early game. I think now I'm in like the middle, and now it's like, okay, I've kind of settled into the vibe and everything, but man, when that game starts off, it is rough. So, eventually I'll talk about that. But I wanted to play Village, and I got Village and started it, and then it was like, get a recap of the story so far, and I'm like, yeah, screw it, I'll just play 7 too. So, and there was a sale on Steam for all the Capcom stuff, so I'm like, yeah, whatever. It was like $6 for 7. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll just get it. And yeah, so far it's very good and well done, but it is very tonally different than all of the other Resident Evils that I've played thus far, in that it is way scarier for no reason.
Old people scare me sometimes, so that game is just terrifying to me.
Man, yeah, it's rough. And there's like, the thing is that there's like the people, there's like the dude, and you fight him with a chainsaw or whatever. But then just like randomly as you're playing the game, there's just a grandma in a wheelchair that just shows up places. Places that, if I'm being honest, aren't wheelchair accessible. So I don't know how she's getting up there.
True.
But she doesn't move, she doesn't speak, she doesn't jump out at you. It's just like you'll walk up the stairs and then turn around and she's just there. And there's like no musical stings or anything. And it's the most chilling thing ever. I've had to like, multiple times when I see her, I have to pause the game and take a few minutes just to be like, I'm going to have to walk past her, and if she jumps out at me, it's going to ruin my day. But I have to mentally prepare myself for that, that case. But it hasn't happened yet. I don't know if it does happen. Hopefully it doesn't. But yeah. Maybe I'm just playing the scariest one first. Get it out of the way, and then I can play all the other ones and be fine. I don't know why this is my new project, but it is. Fast and Furious was a lot easier.
Yeah.
I was literally like, I'll just turn my brain off and watch Dwayne Johnson flex his way out of a cast. And now it's like, I have to put so much mental energy into not crying in my room alone. Which, I mean, that's just all the time. But it's neither here nor there. But let's move on from that, because I'm not done with it yet. So I'm not going to give any more thoughts and or opinions, other than it's pretty good so far. I have a lot of movies that I watched over these last couple of weeks. I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them in detail. So I'll go through the ones that I've watched that I think are pretty good, but not really worthy of a long discussion. I watched the first Rush Hour movie. It's pretty good. I feel like there's not much to be said about it because it's a funny comedy starring Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. Um, it's pretty good. The comedy writing is good. I was laughing quite a bit. I mean, a lot of that is Chris Tucker is just a very funny guy, and Jackie Chan is pretty funny too. And he's obviously, he does all his own stunts, which is fun. It's always like the best part of watching a Jackie Chan movie is, oh, he's actually doing that. He's actually flipping around and doing fun kung fu parkour, and that's kind of fun to see. And it's also really funny. So yeah, I recommend the first Rush Hour movie. I know the third one isn't very good. That's what I've heard. I don't know. I haven't seen any of them, but the first one was pretty good. The other movie that I thought was also pretty good, but not really worthy of a long discussion, is Desperado. It's an early Robert Rodriguez movie. Maybe it is worthy of discussion, but there's just too much to go through. But this is like, I think before From Dusk Till Dawn. This is like the second in his Mexico trilogy. I think it's what it's called, because there's El Mariachi, and that's the one that he made with like a shoestring budget. That I think it was like, I don't know. I think it was under $10,000 he made that movie for. I've heard it's okay. It's impressive that he was able to do it, but you know, it's a movie that was made for under $10,000. Sometimes you get a Hollywood classic out of that, but from what I hear, that is not necessarily the case. And then Desperado comes second. You can tell uh, that at least there's some A-list talent here in the form of Quentin Tarantino is in this movie. Um, I don't know if I would consider him A-list talent, but he was like a rising star during this period. I think this might have been after Pulp Fiction. Um, I don't know if it was before or after Jackie Brown. And considering he isn't wearing a dashiki, it's probably before Jackie Brown. Um, but it has that Robert Rodriguez kind of classic action feel to it. It's all very over the top. There's a lot of squibs and fake blood flying all over the place. It takes like 8 shots to kill someone, kind of like a Resident Evil game. Um, so there's a tie there. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's Antonio Banderas is the lead. And then you got Selma Hayek and Danny Trejo, of course, and Quentin Tarantino, and and for some reason Steve Buscemi is in it. Maybe that's the Tarantino connection, but it's just kind of weird that like everybody is Mexican in this movie except for Quentin Tarantino and Steve Buscemi, and they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. But it's also kind of funny because Steve Buscemi just like, hey, I'm a funny guy. Uh, he's doing his regular Steve Buscemi shtick, which is great. Um, so yeah, check out Desperado. I think Desperado is definitely like a better movie than Rush Hour is, but um, yeah, unfortunately they both kind of get put in this category of uh, I watched too many movies over the last 2 weeks, so sorry, they get nixed. Um, but originally last week I was going to do a fun little segment about two movies that have the word black in their titles. Um, One is called Black Narcissus, and one is called Black Orpheus. And it's kind of funny. I didn't plan this, but there's actually a lot of similarities, at least in the production side of things. And that Black Narcissus is a movie depicting life in like Nepal around like the Himalayas, from a film production company, I think from the UK. So naturally they get like everything wrong. And Black Orpheus is a movie that takes place in Rio de Janeiro and is by a French film company, and therefore also gets pretty much everything wrong. Um, Now, it's not really my place to talk about this because I don't know much about either of these cultures myself. But just like doing some research about this, because I'm like, this feels weird. Like, I've seen movies from Brazil before. I can't say I've ever seen a Nepalese movie before. Um, but like this doesn't feel like that. It feels like someone from the outside trying to depict these cultures. And I've seen like reviews on Letterboxd and stuff from people from these areas, and they're like they don't like it, and so I thought I'd bring it up, but I can't really say too much about it. But I will say that like Black Narcissus especially I felt was like kind of insulting because the whole premise of that movie is it's about a convent that is being set up in an old Buddhist temple in Nepal, and we're supposed to be rooting for them. And I'm like, it kind of turns into a horror movie in the last act where all of them are starting to get killed, and I'm like, I don't care. If all of these nuns get murdered, and this goes back to being a Buddhist temple or whatever it was, then that would probably be better for everybody involved. Um, but that doesn't happen. Um, but yeah, it's kind of weird. It's another one kind of like Gone with the Wind, where it's like it's this classic that people still kind of talk about. It doesn't have the same reputation or notoriety that Gone with the Wind has. But in these like weirdo film enthusiast circles, you'll still hear people talk about it, and it is just overtly racist and gross. Um, so yeah, like pro imperialist garbage, and yeah, that was pretty much my main takeaway. Um, Also, it does have brown face in it, which it's
Good
yeah,
sign.
it's a, yeah, yeah. But I mean, the movie's from the 40s. I don't know. I don't like. I obviously don't like it. I would prefer if movies didn't have it, but I'm also not going to write off a movie from that period for having it. Like just on that being the sole case. If this movie was like fine, but had like an instance of brown face, I wouldn't like write off the entire movie. Um, just because, well, it's the times. Yes, it's bad, but I don't know. People were weird and racist back then. Because like Lawrence of Arabia has brown face in it, and like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly does, and like even like Raiders of the Lost Ark has a Scottish guy playing Sala. So it's like those are like pretty good movies, and I'm not gonna dismiss them, but it's of note, and I feel like I should probably say something where it's like, yes, it's weird that like the general, or like I think that's what his like title is in the movie. But it's like whoever's in charge of like the region is called the general, and it's clearly like a white guy with like it's like the fakest looking beard I've ever seen. Like I don't know if they've ever seen like an Indian person with a beard, because it's like they glued like horse hair on his face. It's so I don't know. It doesn't look like a beard at all. It's like straight. Um, so I don't know. It definitely stands out, but yeah, it's not the only fault this movie has, but yeah. So don't watch Black Narcissus. Black Orpheus, I did find some enjoyment out of it. It's kind of an interesting twist on an old classic tale, because, Orpheus is from that Greek myth where he's like this chill dude who hangs out in the forest and marries like a wood spirit whose name is Eurydice. Eurydice? Yeah. And then Eurydice dies. She gets bit by a snake. And so then he goes down to the underworld and is like, yo, bring me back my wife. I'm so upset. And then Hades is like, yo, okay, that's fine. Just don't look back. And then it's because, well, as he's like almost out of the cave. And then as a Dumbo idiot, he looks behind him and like, oh no. Because he looked behind, then she gets dragged back to the underworld. And he probably ends up killing himself or something. I don't know. I feel like that's how like every Greek myth ends. I don't know. I haven't read it. So it's a play on that, but it takes place in Rio de Janeiro in like the 70s, and it's like a day before Carnival. I think that's what it's called. Um, and it's kind of fun because like the main guy is Orpheus, and he's like this super suave guitar player, and everybody, all the girls wanna date him because he's so sexy, and he's an artist and he dances around. Um, but he also works on a train. But then there's this chick who moves in from out of town, and her name just so happens to be Eurydice, which is a weird name for someone from Brazil to have. But I guess if I have to accept that Orpheus is a name that someone from Brazil would have, I guess I'll accept it. Um, but then from there, it doesn't really follow the myth at all. It's like just like a love story between these two, and like yes, she dies, but then it gets like really weird and depressive. Like he doesn't go to the underworld; he goes to like this underground voodoo club where they're like trying to bring her back from the dead. Which I don't know anything about it, but I did see a review from someone from Brazil who said that that specific religion that was depicted is like a religion that only the like um, super high class people in Brazil during that time would have followed, and like they were really gatekeepy about keeping it in like just the high class circles. So it wouldn't be something that, someone in like this lower class kind of bard character would run into just off the street. Um, but I don't know. I don't even know what it's called. But yeah, he just kind of gets sad and watches these like voodoo people do dances, and then the movie just kind of ends because he dies. I forget how he dies. I think he throws himself off a cliff or something. I don't know. I was like barely engaged with the last half of this movie because like, oh, this is a fun love story, and then it gets weird and sad. Like this isn't fun at all. This used to remember when it was just this guy playing beautiful guitar jams like that fun like Latin guitar stuff. Like, yeah, I love that kind of music. Just give me more of that, and then it just gets sad. I'm like, oh, this isn't fun. So I don't recommend either of them. I'm kind of glad we didn't do a podcast last week because I wouldn't have been able to really fill very much time talking about those two. Um, but instead, I want to spend some time plugging a very small independent movie that is sweeping the nation. I don't know how popular it is, um, but I saw that my local art house uh, theater was playing Hundreds of Beavers. And I'm like, well, that's intriguing to me. And the poster was like a guy dressed up as like a fur trader from like the 1800s, and he's being chased by like hundreds of people in really bad beaver costumes. I'm like, well, this looks funny. If everybody looks like they're really bad animal costumes, then this has some potential to be really funny. And yeah, it is. It's one of the funniest movies I maybe have ever seen. Um, it's easily my movie of the year so far. Um, I'm going to just say go see it now, and I would recommend going in relatively blind. I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about it, but if you want to know like no details, then stop the podcast, see if there's a screening near you, which is not guaranteed. Um, I saw that they just added some more dates to like one night screenings in like different cities, but none of them were near me. I think the closest one was in Minneapolis. So it might be difficult to see it. I think you can find it online though. And I would still recommend seeing it online, but there was something really special to seeing it in a theater. Um, but just kind of okay, go see it now. And now that for those who don't care or want to know a little bit more about it, um, it's kind of interesting. I'll get the like pretentious part out of the way. It's black and white, but it's like it's kind of like a movie long Looney Tunes live action cartoon. I think that's maybe the best way to put it. Because it's in black and white, it's 4:3, which, would be like, oh, it's this artsy, pretentious stuff. But it really isn't. It's really slapstick. It's really funny. There's a lot of like physical gags with like everybody being dressed up in these terrible animal costumes. Um, and I would say that the movie like um, does like a really great job of emulating that cartoon style, which was like really the only thing I had heard about it before, is that it is like this slapstick Looney Tunes thing. Um, and so I was like, well, how is that going to work? Because a lot of the charm of those old Looney Tunes things are the animation styles and like the creativity that they had back in the day with like how wild those things got. Well, how are you going to be able to recreate that in live action? And they don't like go for it as hard as like a Looney Tunes thing does, but also like going that hard for an hour and a half might get tiring after a while. Um, so there's a lot of like repeat gags. I think it did take a minute for me to like get into it because I'm like, what is this? This this doesn't really make any sense. Um, because I'm like, I've never seen anything like it. But then once it kind of settles into a rhythm where basically the main character starts off as like he brews cider, and then wouldn't you know it, a bunch of beavers steal his kegs, and they explode, and then his whole livelihood is gone. So he has to learn how to survive and forage in the olden days of being a fur trader. And so it's really fun. Like that's pretty much the long and short of it, is that he becomes a fur trader. But what's really funny is that in the background of this movie, just like slowly as the movie is going, there's just this giant conspiracy of all of these beavers. They're like building this giant pyramid and having this entire secret society that is like it is just going on in the background. We aren't really seeing it. Um, but yeah, it's just a lot of funny stuff like that. And yeah, I thought I'd give it a plug, a little shout out. Check it out if you can in theaters. It was really fun because my local theater, my little art house theater, there's one really big kind of what you think of a theater where there's like about 100 seats or so, and then there's this really small theater on the second floor that has like 20 seats, and that was the one that was playing Hundreds of Beavers, and it was really great because it was this really small intimate setting, and it was really good because a lot of people were laughing. And that's what you want. When you see a comedy in theaters, you don't want a silent theater because that's gonna, that kind of ruins the experience. But when you're in this small, intimate setting and a bunch of people are laughing, that just enhances the comedy, like a natural laugh track. And so it was a lot of fun. It was maybe one of my favorite movie going experiences I've had in a while. So, yeah, go see Hundreds of Beavers. I'm definitely interested on what this guy is going to be doing next because I think he's done one other movie before this and it's in a similar vein. Um, but if he keeps making movies like this, I'm on board because this is like unique, um, and it's just like it's such a breath of fresh air. Where like all of these comedies that come out, they all feel the same, or maybe not anymore. I feel like nobody makes comedies anymore, really. Basically, everybody who made comedies now makes serious movies, like The Joker or whatever. Um, but back in the day when I was growing up, like every Judd Apatow, every Seth Rogen, Will Ferrell, they all have like the same sense of comedy. They all kind of feel the same. They're emulating the same formula. It's so nice to go see a comedy in theaters that is so different. I mean, it definitely depends on a lot of tropes from stuff that's 60, 80 years old. Um, but it's just like in a way that's kind of unique and its own thing because it is live action, and so much of the comedy depends on all of the animals are played by people in terrible animal costumes. So yeah, great movie. Rent it online. I don't know where, but I think it's somewhere. So do it now. All right. I'll try to talk about the next two relatively quickly because we have other stuff to talk about. Well, I don't, but I'm sure we have a lot of music stuff to talk about. Um, because well, the second movie I want to do a little bit more talking about is Studio Ghibli movie Porco Rosso. Uh, One that I basically knew nothing about. It's not one that I hear many people bring up in terms of like best Ghibli movies. It's not one of the big ones. But I was like, hey, I'll try it. It's a pig who flies a plane, and that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And I didn't know this until after I finished it. The pig is played by Michael Keaton, which I think is just kind of funny because it's like the voice of Batman, but he's a pig who flies a plane. And it's kind of interesting. It's set in like Italy in like the I think maybe mid 30s. So like right as the fascist party was coming into power. Um, and it's about basically this alternate universe where um, I don't know, maybe this is how it was, where like there's just like a lot of seaplanes everywhere. Actually, this probably isn't how it was because all of the planes aren't real, but like um, basically like there's a bunch of like seaplane pirates and they're attacking all of these ships that are like cruise ships or they're merchant ships. And so Porco Rosso is a bounty hunter that is shooting down these pirates, and you know he's a good guy, just all around good guy. um, but it's just kind of it's nice. It's a nice, cute movie. It's kind of like Kiki's Delivery Service, where it's like it's just one where you can kind of like turn your brain off, and maybe that's the case for most Ghibli movies, where it's just kind of cute fun. But the difference between this one and most other Ghibli movies is that this one's like really funny, and not in like a kind of oh it's funny kind of cutesy style of humor. Like this is like legitimately funny. I was laughing pretty consistently throughout this movie, um, and a lot of that is the performances. Porco Rosso is great. He has this like gruff kind of noir um, kind of voice going. I guess that's what Keaton's trying to do, um, which is kind of fun because he's like a bounty hunter, and it kind of reminds me of like Bebop, like that style of not humor, but like that kind of performance. Spike from Bebop, um, and so yeah, it's just kind of great. It's this little bounty hunter tale, and he starts fighting this American guy, and it's Carrie Elwes from The Princess Bride, and for some reason he's doing a Texas accent, which, if I'm being honest, he doesn't really stick to. He's kind of all over the place with it. Like sometimes he's just doing kind of default American accent, kind of like what I have, although I have more of a Midwestern accent. But um, then he kind of slips into a Southern thing every once in a while, and then I'm like, oh yeah, he's supposed to be from Texas. Um, I don't think he ever does a Texas accent. It's more just like general South, which nobody cares about except for me. But it is just kind of funny that he's playing this like suave American arrogant guy who's like, I want to be the guy who takes down Porco Rosso because I want to I want to have a burgeoning film career. I'm going to be so famous that I'll be the president of the United States. I don't know if that was supposed to be a Reagan thing, but it might have been. I don't know. Um, but yeah, this film also has like great lore because the pig is I guess he was an Air Force pilot for Italy during World War One, and then once uh, Italy turned fascist, he uh, left. He deserted the Air Force. And the famous line is that he says, "I'd rather be a pig than a fascist." And it's just like, that's funny to me. Um, yeah, and he says that to one of the Italian Air Force guys. So I'd recommend it. It's fun and cute, like every Ghibli movie, but it's also really funny. So check out Porco Rosso. I think it's definitely worth watching. It's my second favorite Ghibli movie now. I know, very intense and cool. But the last movie I want to talk about is The Swiss Army Man. Uh, because I've been wanting to see this movie for a long time, and I saw it was on Max. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Screw it. I'll watch The Swiss Army Man. Mainly because I enjoyed Everything Everywhere All at Once quite a bit. Very, very good movie. And I know that this is the other movie that Daniels made before making Everything Everywhere. Um, and so I knew going in it was going to be weird and quirky. And yes, that is true. And it also deals a lot with like existentialism and suicidal ideation. I don't know why that's a running theme in their in their movies, but I guess it's what they're good at. But yeah, the movie starts and Paul Dano is trying to hang himself because he's a man who's deserted on an island, and it's a really small island, and you can tell he's been there a while because he's all shaggy, which I think is just funny to see Paul Dano having a beard. I feel like he never does. Um, and just as he's about to hang himself, he's about to kick the little thing out from under him. He sees Daniel Radcliffe wash on shore, and he's like, "Yo, another person!" But he gets so excited that he does kick the thing out from under him, and he like starts dying. But luckily, the rope that he was hanging himself with wasn't built very well, and it just snaps. Otherwise, this would have been a very short movie. Um, but yeah, it turns out that Daniel Radcliffe is a corpse, but it's a corpse that has special powers. Um, and he gets more powers as the movie goes on. I don't know if powers is the right word, um, but I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it. He gets special powers, but his first power is that um, basically Paul Dano starts giving him CPR because he's dead, and he's giving him CPR, and then he has a lot of gas, and he's like, haha, very funny. It's a dead guy, I bet he's bloated or whatever. But he has so much gas that Paul Dano can use him as a jet ski to get off the island. So that's how the movie starts. He gets on Daniel Radcliffe as a jet ski, and then I think the opening credits play as that's going. Um, yeah, so that kind of sets the tone. It gets dark, but there's also some goofy wackiness in there to kind of offset it, to kind of give it that heart, because otherwise it's too much of a downer, which is something I really appreciate about Daniel's stuff, um, especially in Everything Everywhere. That movie is touching on a lot of really dark themes, especially towards the end, but they do offset it by instilling a lot of like really good character relation stuff, and also just funny, quirky stuff, which I think could get old for people. I know a lot of people kind of turned on that movie as soon as it won Best Picture because they all turned into hipsters or whatever. But I think it's really well done at what it's trying to do. Um, and so I think this movie it kind of fits the same vibe. It's obviously very different. Like Everything Everywhere kind of has that sci-fi twist or fantasy twist, whereas Swiss Army Man is more. I was about to say more grounded, but it isn't really. I'll say more grounded than Everything Everywhere because, uh, you know, about maybe after the first act or so, it turns out Daniel Radcliffe can talk, and he has like no memories of who he was before he was a corpse. He's just a corpse and a dead person. But as a dead person, he is basically like a kid, or someone who doesn't have any memories or whatever. So like he's trying to learn about the world around him and like the civilized world, because Paul Dano is trying to, get away from this deserted island, and he's trying to get back to civilization. And Daniel Radcliffe's like, well, why would you want to do that? So over the course of the movie, they're teaching him about life, about how human society works. And so that's kind of fun. I'm not going to say it's like the most unique angle in the world, but I think it's a really well done way to kind of, um, I don't know. I think doing it that way kind of, it kind of goes a long way to show like the good parts of human society, because there's a lot of bad. I think nobody would dispute that. But to kind of like, yes, we can get like suffocated and drown in the negativity, but to someone who has never experienced it before, it seems like the best thing ever. And maybe taking a look on that side, on the brighter side, just kind of shifting your focus, can maybe help not drown, which I think is important. So yeah, it's a pretty good movie. I don't think it's as good as Everything Everywhere, but if someone said they preferred this movie over Everything Everywhere, I wouldn't have a problem with it, because it's really well done. Not that I'd have a problem with anyone saying that they prefer any movie over whatever, because I'm not super gatekeepy. But I would respect it. Be like, okay, I can see it, because it's very, very good. So yeah, I don't want to go too much into spoilers, because I highly recommend it. So check out Swiss Army Man. I think of these, I would recommend the ones I talked about: Hundreds of Beavers, Porco Rosso, and Swiss Army Man. I think those were all 4 stars or above in my book. So check them out. Why don't ya? But other than that, I don't think I have anything. I just have one music thing, and I'm sure Babby's going to talk about it. So I'll throw it on over to Babby right now for the music segment of the show.
Woo! I also finished the Fallout TV series, so we can talk about that eventually.
Yeah, okay, I'll watch that. I'll finish The Sopranos and then I'll watch Fallout.
Cool. That'll be our boy time feature.
Perfect. How many episodes are there?
There's 8.
Oh, okay,
like
that's
an hour
easy.
long. It's pretty simple.
Okay.
I don't know. It won't be the longest feature in the world, but it'll be a feature.
That's fine. Well, we both like the Fallout series, so we can talk about it through that angle.
It's a very solid show.
Okay, I was a little worried because it looked way too oversaturated.
It is definitely lower budget.
Oh, really?
It's a little rough in the first couple episodes, but it gets better.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out.
I will say the production quality matches the production quality of the games, which I think is accurate and good. So.
Well, that's good then.
But yeah, we'll do that eventually. Okay, we got 2 weeks of stuff to cover here.
Oh boy.
I think I'm gonna start with Gossip Hour, Tea Time, whatever.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, because I got some albums to talk about that I want to like separate from this.
Okay.
So I guess we're going back 2 weeks. So we left off last time on the Gossip Hour. Was it the Drake diss track, the first one? I think so.
I think so.
I think that's the last we talked about this. Well, Drake followed up with a second diss track, I think a week later. I think it was Tailor Made Freestyle. You can't access it anymore since it's deleted from the internet. So he dropped that, and in that song he used AI to mimic Snoop Dogg and Tupac's voices.
That one?
It was a really bad diss track. I think this was his, like, I don't know, it felt desperate but at the same time, it was probably just to try to get Kendrick to like jump the gun and do it before he was ready,
Mm.
um, which obviously did not work. Um, yeah, and I think this hurt Drake a lot because it's a really weird move to do. Um, One, using AI to mimic your voice into like Tupac and Snoop Dogg is just really stupid. Um, it's very different when Kendrick uses a like never before heard interview with Tupac to make into a conversation on the end of his concept album with full permission of the Tupac estate,
Yeah.
um, compared to this. And the Tupac estate grilled him for this, which I don't think he was expecting that.
Really?
So that backfired big time. They sent a cease and desist and said that Kendrick Lamar is a great friend of the Tupac estate, um, and that this is a tarnish on his legacy and should get taken down, which
Good.
is really funny.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like, what are you doing? But basically, what he used this diss track to do, I think, essentially was to get ahead of certain things, so Kendrick couldn't talk about them.
Mm.
Didn't work. He tried to get ahead of the underage girls thing and everything, which again just shows weakness and that it does hurt him.
Uh
So I don't
huh.
know why he did this.
How did he get in front
Really
of it?
annoying. He was just like doing the like he was doing the Eminem thing where he makes fun of himself.
Oh.
Except it didn't work very well. Um, yeah, not good. He got rid of it. But that didn't stop him from just posting on Instagram all week because that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think that's the last development before today. It went dead for a little bit. It was Drake and Rick Ross like posting Instagram memes to each other because they're petty and all they do is sit in their mansions and click on Instagram all day, it seems.
Uh-huh.
Um, but Kendrick Lamar came back today on April the 30th,
What?
with his response. So we got Euphoria, officially dropped, by the way, on Spotify streaming services and YouTube. Um, Not leaked through the grapevine, and then people wondering whether it's real or not, only for Drake to come out never and say that it's real, actually, and then release it on streaming services 2 weeks later because it is on streaming services
Yeah.
now. So actually just released it and didn't do all this funny internet stuff where everybody's like, "Ooh, is it real or not?" No, he just dropped it, which I knew exactly he would do. It's how he operates.
Yeah.
Um, but this is a 6.5 minute long track. I expected nothing less, to be honest. Um, it is a multi-phased, multifaceted diss track. We're not going to go through the entire thing because that would take like literally 45 minutes at least. Um, but if you're curious about the nitty gritty of things, you can go to Genius. Every single line in the song is annotated um,
Already.
with paragraphs of context. Some of them are wrong, but
For
I'm sure
sure.
they'll get corrected as time goes on. Um, since this is pretty new, and Kendrick usually has stuff that people don't catch right away, just because it's either obscure or it's just not catching up to it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, before the song even starts, we have a reversed out sample from the Wiz movie. Um, from Michael Jackson's character saying that he's a phony, um,
Oh.
which is kind of crazy because they're still continuing this the whole Prince and Mike Jack, uh, line from all the way back from like that. They're still going with that. Um, it's crazy how many little clever things they can pull out of this comparison because they've been doing it on every single song. Um, I think even the name of the song being Euphoria is perfect. Uh, Drake is actually an executive producer on the show Euphoria. Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
that show is very. It's a not great concept.
Yeah.
I have very mixed feelings about that show even existing. Um, and I don't think it helps Drake's case with the other allegations that we will get into on this song. But him being an executive producer on that show makes so much sense.
Yep.
Um, so I think just even titling the song that is perfect. He starts the song very like soulful, laid back, like it would just be like an album cut, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
Um, but I do like the kind of ramp up. Like he always has this kind of like gear up kind of motion in some of his tracks, and he kind of took that here. Um, every single line in here is fantastic. Just talking about how he was an actor and then turned a rapper and expected to be just like greeted with open arms. I love the Tommy Hilfiger stood up, a FUBU had never been in your collection line. Um, Tommy Hilfiger was like called out for being like really racist, and like a lot of hip hop people did not really rock with that.
Mm.
But FUBU was kind of this. I think I landed a whole episode on FUBU. Um, it's kind
Yeah.
of this black owned, kind of the same like polo ish style. Um, so again, taking jabs at that immediately. I make music that electrify them. You make music that pacify them. I can double down on that line, but spare you this time. That's random acts of kindness. Um, yeah, we're getting into the underage girls or like grooming allegations immediately.
Yeah.
Um, but not directly poking at it. He kind of pokes around it, but he doesn't like explicitly say anything in this track, um, which I think is good because he's kind of like poking this a little bit more, um, and not just being like ha ha ha, ha because I feel like that's not going to work here. I mean, it's Kendrick Lamar. I think I do appreciate how he was not just like super deep for this whole thing. Um, I think that's very important. You can't come out with like a you know, um, an incredibly like heart part five deep dense thingy like this, because then you're just gonna be like, oh, I don't understand any of this. Bye. Um, but yeah, and then the beat shifts, and we get more of like a, I guess, a diss track like beat. We have horns. We have this more aggressive sounding track, and he goes into his a voice cracky flow, um, which he does great in. Um, yeah, I think every single line in here is great. There's a lot of double entendres. There's definitely some I'm not even gonna like attempt to break down. But the whole like he's made references to like Hellcats and then demons, like the Dodge Hellcat and then the Dodge Demon being one up on that, and talking about how Drake is like recruiting all of these rappers that could be have massive careers, but to write for him and giving them money so they can buy a Hellcat, similar to like when kids get drafted in the military and they get these super low APR rates for their stupid challengers or whatever that they buy. Um, I thought that was a really funny line. um, what else we got in here? Talking about how he puts on this fake gangster persona that he's like suddenly adopted since like 2019, and just really breaking that down, which is definitely something in Drake's career that has developed crazy, like this whole like mob ties persona that he's trying to put on, and the whole like XXX Tentacion conspiracy type thing where Drake thinks he's like dangerous, but really he just like works with J Prince and you know all that kind of shady business stuff in the background. Um, what else? There's also a line that potentially alludes to Drake paying someone off $500,000 to drop a sexual assault case. That's definitely something. Um, yeah, I do really appreciate this disc doing stuff like that, where it is kind of like, ooh, legal, real life stuff. But then it's also just like, I hate you. And I think that's the perfect mix that we have to go here. Um, I still think like Story of Adidon is like something that is just like once in a lifetime diss track. Like the way
Yeah.
that he surgically kind of picked every single thing apart in like a 3.5 minute track was like incredible. But I like Kendrick's approach here of just like kind of having a little bit more fun with it, and like progressively just getting more and more agitated as the song goes on. Um, but yeah, I think the his daddy a killer, he wanted to be junior. They must have forgot what they done with the whole Birdman and then Lil Wayne, and then Lil Wayne being close to Drake and getting him in on the music business and stuff. Um, I think that was great. I think Kendrick definitely flipped the extortion line that Drake put on him, because they were in the same situation. So I don't really understand why Drake did such a big deal about it. Like I think it was a good angle to go on, because what angle are you going to go at Kendrick for?
Yeah.
Um, but he had to know it was going to get it flipped like right back at him. Like Drake does not have a situation that was better at that point. He was signed to like a label within a label within a label within a label. Like your splits are going to be horrible there too.
Yeah.
Talks about how Drake bought a ring worn by Tupac last year, and that like um, that's just like rubs him the wrong way. Which clearly, I mean, it's really dumb. um, what else we got in here? Oh, the YNW Melly line was great, talking about J. Cole and Drake being like kind of buddy buddy now,
Mm.
um, and saying that they pray that they're real fans, if not YNW Melly, which YNW Melly like murked his two best friends like randomly in 2019.
Oh.
Um, yeah, and I don't know. I feel like he's in jail for life, but I don't remember if that was him or another YNW. Remember, it was a crazy story. Um, there was a Pusha T line in here, which was great. I was like wondering who was going to bring up his name first. Um, I think that's just like teasing to a max. This whole thing is like playground beef, just like elevated to an extreme amount, and I think that's the entertaining part with a lot of this.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is personal and serious at the same time. It's a really weird spectacle to watch. But even just hearing Kendrick do a diss track is crazy. I never thought I'd hear a full Kendrick diss track, and this definitely won't be the last of Drake response.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a really fun track. There's a lot of really 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 great lines on here. Um, I love the line where he's just like, it's always about love and hate, and let me just say, I'm the biggest hater. I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk, the way that you dress.
Yeah.
Um, it's like so plain spoken, but it's like, yeah, that just goes so hard. Um, I think it makes sense for Kendrick to just be like the world's biggest hater with certain things. Like usually those people that are like more, lyrically dense in their raps, it's like you always expect something like that. But when someone just like comes out plainly and says it like that, it's always like, whoa. Um, Man, the line about like the women he gets with and how they're always like Instagram models and OnlyFans models and like 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all of that. He has like a quadruple entendre on here with like one of these lines alluding to like the grooming allegations with like Millie Bobby Brown and like Billie Eilish, or the ones where like his baby mother was a porn star and he like had to clean her up to like save his reputation, or just the fact that like every single like picture you see of Drake on Instagram, he's always with like some random 18-year-old model on their page.
Yeah.
And just kind of really dissecting his issues he has with women and his blackness and his personality and his relation to all this. Um, I think he calls out the misogyny part of Drake's persona too, which I think is really, really, really good point to touch on.
Yeah.
And how he does kind of like, this is someone who is the biggest artist in the world and has so much draw and power and money. And all you're doing is like pretty much scrolling Instagram and finding whoever's going to be like your next piece of meat. Um, and yeah, it's a great set of lines. As we get deeper into this track, he just gets like more and more fierce. Um, Talks about how many more black features you're gonna get till you finally black enough. This is definitely touching on like Drake picking up like very lesser known artists and featuring on their track, trying to get a street cred up. And then if those artists do sign with Drake, he like basically extorts them and either like makes them write for him or gives them a really awful deal. Someone like The Weeknd evaded that, thank God. Otherwise, we thought he would not be a household name. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the he talks about how he likes Drake stuff where it's more R&B and melodic, and he doesn't like it when he makes this stupid fake gangster stuff that he's been making for the past 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
which is great. Um, the let your core audience stomach that, then tell them where you got your abs from is fantastic. Again, this is a line that Rick Ross called out with like the nose job and like the fake abs. Apparently, this fake abs thing is like a big thing that happened, and a lot of people have been talking about it. Where he allegedly got like a tummy tuck essentially done in 2016.
Oh.
He definitely looks strange because there's photos of him like 3 months span. One where like he's just kind of like normal looking, and then one where like his abs are absolutely ripped, but none of the rest of them really is. Um, yeah, and then that was again, it's still kind of funny to poke at him for that, but I mean, go for it.
Yeah.
um, and the last verse, which is it's only verse two. That's crazy. These verses are long.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a 7-minute song.
it is a 7 minute song. He says he doesn't like it when he uses the N word. I think this is a very big thing that people have not brought up enough, um, and how like easily he just says it a lot in his music. I think with a lot of mixed rappers, it's like they don't use it like a ton, or if they do, I feel like I mean J Cole uses it a lot too, but I don't think he. This is something you could get J Cole on honestly too. But I think the issue stems from like Drake growing up with his white side of the family and being in the
Yeah.
showbiz, and like his dad not being around, and then all of a sudden he like brings his dad into the picture and kind of parades him out as like, look, I have a black dad, um, to kind of like justify how he uses things. Um, so again, Pusha T touched on that. I think it's just a different angle here, and I think it works really well. Um, yeah, just dissecting him further. Um, he gets into like, I see you standing next to Sexy Red. I believe you see two bad bitches. Um, just like playing at like his weird. I don't know. He's been like doing some really weird Instagram poses and just like acting really strange. But this also touches back to how he treats other female rappers nowadays. Um, he was on Tory Lane's side with the whole Megan Thee Stallion shooting case when obviously Megan Thee Stallion was shot by Tory Lanez. He
Yeah.
was like really disrespectful for her the whole time. Um, and I feel like he's like, you're scared of the women coming up in hip hop and you see them as like legitimate competition.
Mm.
I think it's because they share the same target audiences, but also like the image of like Drake twerking next to someone like Sexy Red is just hilarious, and I think that's just a hilarious line. I love how funny Kendrick is, and he never really shows it in his music. I mean,
No.
he's a funny guy if you watch interviews with him,
Yeah.
um, but his music is so serious. Usually, you don't get a whole lot of glimpses of this, but yeah, really good. He talks about how Drake tried to do a cease and desist on Like That, which
Oh,
is
really?
something we didn't know about, unless they're talking about the Like That remix with Kanye, which I don't care about that song.
Yeah.
Um, Either way, it's weird. Um, Talks about how he's like got annoyed with him just like um, poking him, telling him to respond right away, and like posting memes and is like, uh, I'm raising a family and I have a son on the way, but you don't know anything about that. Um, I think the calling up and trying to get dirt on people. Push when the Pusha T beef was happening, Drake was had people calling trying to get information on Pusha T, to like leak in a diss track, but none of Pusha T's guys gave up anything or anything even close to Pusha T gave up anything. Um, so touching on that, good. um, yeah, it's the whole 20 versus 1, but it's 1 versus 20. If I got to smack the people that write with you, talking about ghostwriters. Am I battling ghosts or AI? Great line. um, yeah, it's really it's a pretty good diss track. I definitely don't think this is the best that he can do because I think the next one will probably be better.
Yeah.
Um, he definitely baited him at the end, just like Drake baited Kendrick. So that's just because how it's gonna go. So I think at this point Drake has to respond. He's kind of pushed himself into a corner here with all of the Instagram trolling and constantly being like, "Where's Kendrick? Where's Kendrick?" So I
Yeah.
feel like he pretty much has to drop at this point, and then I feel like we're gonna get a hit him up situation next time. Um, does Drake really have dirt on Kendrick that nobody knows about and is going to be really bad for his career? I don't think so. I don't know what you would have on Kendrick. Um, I feel like everything he talks about is what he really is, and there's been no evidence to really go against that. Um, I mean, if the biggest thing you could pull up on the last one was like him getting extorted because he signed on a label when he was 19 years old, um, and that he's short and wears a size 7 shoe. I don't know if that's really enough to cut it.
No.
But does Kendrick have dirt on Drake? I think absolutely. I think a ton of people have dirt on Drake. I
Yeah.
mean, he's Drake. He is the biggest artist in the world besides Taylor Swift, probably. Um, and he also has a ton of influence. I think there was one line on the Like That remix with Kanye that mentioned someone in the music business that Drake is close to who essentially owns like half of the music industry.
Mm.
Um, which that's something I want to dig into more, but I don't have the information on that now. That might come up in Kendrick's next diss track, possibly, um, because I mean Drake is a like Kendrick said in the song, like a master manipulator and a liar. Um, the way he acts towards women and everything is really weird. The way he puts on artists and then dumps them is weird.
Yeah.
It's grooming when it comes to professional and personal. It's a big web with a very fake gangster persona. Um, so I think it's a really, really great dissection. It's not anywhere near Story of Adidon. I was not expecting that on the first round, at least. I don't think Kendrick is even capable of that. Pusha T has literally nothing to lose because he is not nearly at the height of popularity that Kendrick is. So
Yeah.
he could get as disrespectful as he wanted with no consequence because he's also known for making the grimiest stuff possible. Um, but yeah, really, really, really great. I was excited to see it drop today, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go, podcast timing, good for once.
Good podcast
um,
timing.
yeah, so very good. I don't think it'll be as replayable, but I'm gonna keep replaying it. Just because new Kendrick, I'm gonna play it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I am excited to see what happens next. This is so WWE like drama, but it's keeping the hip hop sphere interesting this year, and I'm here for it. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of glad J. Cole backed out, and now we can kind of have a one-on-one. I feel like J. Cole knew a lot of this stuff was going to happen. He'd be like, "All right, guys, leave me out of it." He should have just never released that diss track, and then I would like not have anything against him at this point for this. Um, I still think doing the whole diss track when he didn't even want to do it clearly was really stupid.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I mean, everybody was just like, "Okay, yeah, whatever. Go do your thing. We're gonna tear each other apart over here." Um, which honestly is the way I want it to be. I didn't want it to be like this weird like three-person thing. I don't think J. Cole has anything to say to either of these two, and I don't think anybody has anything to say to J. Cole. It would be purely off of like rap performance at that point, which is kind of what the diss track was, and that's why he failed because he's not anywhere near Kendrick when it comes to that, anyways.
Yeah.
Um, but I think this is deeper now. This is personal. Kendrick really hates this dude. Um, which we kind of knew, but I think just him plainly stating it and just like dissecting in this way was just hilarious and much needed.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like this feels like that one like very problematic family member that everybody just keeps around, but like someone gets a little bit too tipsy at a family gathering and someone just goes absolutely off on this person. This is exactly what it feels like. It's like everybody, the things that everybody's been wanting to say for like ever, just put in a way better than most people could. Um, that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like we're just like shunning him into a corner
Yeah.
with all these like personal and just like kind of funny insults through all this. So, um, but yeah, that's what happened today. I think that's as up to date as we can possibly be at this moment. So I'm glad that I'm reporting drama on a weekly basis.
It's about time.
It's about time, but I got to get the information out there somehow to people who aren't too caught up to date with this stuff. And a lot of it doesn't even matter, but it's fun and it's entertaining. It's something you don't get in any other music genre, and I think it's a good part of hip hop, especially since we're out of the 90s and people do not kill each other over this stuff anymore. At least they
I,
haven't in a while.
I think that's probably a good thing.
Yes, it's a very good thing. Yeah. So that was that. Now we can get into actual music stuff, I guess. Um, so we got 2 weeks of stuff to go through. I will start with Nas. We have a lot of hip hop today.
Oh.
Nas and DJ Premier released a single, "Define My Name." Um, this came around on the 30th anniversary of Illmatic, which makes sense. DJ Premier was on Illmatic, and these two linked up. And this single is pretty good. But the best thing about the single is at the end they announced they are doing a full collab album. Finally,
Oh.
it's been 30 years and they're finally doing it. Nas has been on a hot streak, and DJ Premier has always been rock solid. Um, so I think this is going to be a really great record. This is exactly what I want from a Nas album. I really love the Hit Boy collabs, but it's like there's not a lot of replay value on those for me. I come to hear like the great bars that Nas is still dropping somehow. He's been on a great run. I think when it comes to like longevity terms, he's definitely had like a really, really, really great resurgence. So I hope he continues that on this new collab album, but that should be really, really good, I would think. I don't want to get my expectations too high just because like neither of them are at like the peak of their career. It's like 30 years after the fact. But I'm hoping they really do lean into that old school style and give us something that definitely sounds of its time. I think the single was pretty good with the whole record scratching and classic DJ Premierisms in it. But yeah, excited for that. I think that was the only single I listened to these 2 weeks. It's been mainly albums.
Mm.
Um, I think we did get a new Porter Robinson single. I did not listen to that, but we
Yeah, I
also
didn't
have
either.
the album and release date for mid July,
Mm-hmm.
so or end of July.
Yeah,
So I
July
will just
26th.
yeah, I'll just wait for the album on that. We'll do a
Yeah,
reaction to that.
absolutely.
Um, we'll be as cringe as possible in that video, given the XDs and the smiley emojis and whatever else he's doing with this thing.
We'll drop some
Um,
ooh-woos.
yeah, we'll drop some movies. We'll buy the Razer headphones with the cat ears on it.
Oh,
You know,
I don't know
we'll
about
do
that
something.
one.
We're getting closer to Billie Eilish's new record. She's been doing some interviews and press tours for that, but we're still not getting any singles for that, which is fine. Uh, Eminem Slim Shady is dropping a new record this year.
What?
Um, it is called The Death of Slim Shady, coup de grace.
Oh,
So, um,
okay.
I don't know. There's nothing else I need to hear from Eminem ever. So,
Yeah.
well, I listen to it. Maybe I don't know. We'll see how people are feeling about it. It's just, I don't have faith in him at all. I have like the least amount of faith. Um,
That's fair.
when it, yeah, it, it's been a rough go.
Yeah.
But maybe it'll be good. That would be surprising. One of the crazier things to happen this year, I would assume. Um, but yeah, we had a new Knocked Loose single, but I'm gonna save that for the May 10th release. That one was with Poppy though, so I'm excited to hear that. But yeah, that record comes out May 10th. I think a lot of stuff's coming out May 10th, so that'll be a bigger week. Um, so I guess that's next Friday at this point. That's crazy. But yeah, excited for that. Okay, we can get into let's do Alchemist first. So we got a new Gangrene album. I hope I'm saying that right. This is the kind of group between Alchemist and Oh No. This is their second album, I believe. Yeah, it's their first since 2015. Um, I believe they did a lot of stuff for the GTA 5 soundtrack, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they got a couple songs in there, and they might have done the actual soundtrack. But Heads I Win, Tails You Lose is the album title. A lot of Alchemist. This is like a true duo. Like they're both rapping on it,
Hmm.
and they're both producing on it in certain ways, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think Alchemist rapping wise has probably his best performances I've heard so far. He sounds a lot more grounded in his own style, and he sounds more unique than what I've heard from him so far. He definitely still sounds Action Bronson esque, but I feel like his writing and everything is getting a little more unique to him, which I'm enjoying. And I think Ono is pretty good when it comes to this. Um, I think his rapping is really great on this record, and I think they have a really nice energy to bounce off of each other. One's got more of a like vibrant delivery, and then Alchemist is a little bit more chill and laid back with that heavy New York slang on him. And the production here is great. I think this is some of my favorite Alchemist beats in a while. I don't know, the vibe to it. I think it's very. It looks like the album. It sounds like the album cover. It is definitely like grimy and kind of neon, dark, shady production. But I think something like Cloud Surfing. There's some flutes on that track that go crazy. Muffler Lung was great with this like weird drone in the background. So yeah, it's a fun little record. It's definitely not like anything that's going to be too like crazy this year. It's not going to like rank super high, but it's a nice record to just kind of like get that Alchemist fix. And I feel like this is the best thing he's released in a little bit. Um, I mean, he's always working, but I like this more than that little collab tape with Hit Boy he did earlier this year.
Mm.
So yeah, check that one out if you're into that thing because it's Alchemist, and if you like Alchemist, you know what you're getting. Um, But yeah, definitely seeing improvements on his rapping, which is fun. I could definitely tell they were just having fun with this one, which is all I can ask for.
Yeah.
Okay, next I have Cavalier. His Backwoods Studios debut, different type time. Been waiting for this one since it got announced in January, I think. We got 21 songs here in an hour long, um, which is a lot. But I think the time is actually pretty decent. The album doesn't really get too stale. I think when it comes to a Backwoods Studios release, this definitely sounds different. You did not get the usual like Backwoods collection of producers and features on this thing, which I do think make it sound a bit more fresh, and I do enjoy that. I wasn't too sure how to feel about it before listening, just because I'm like, usually when it comes to the Backwoods project, I'm like, all right, we're getting a Billy Woods feature. We're gonna have people like DJ Haram and Messiah Music and all those people in here. I think Messiah Music is on here still, but we definitely have a different cast of individuals, and I think that makes a really cool experience. It definitely has. This is one where it's like the album as a whole is better than any single can be. I think the vibe of the record is very strong, and I think the way it's sequenced is really nice. It has this like kind of little bit of like nostalgic, almost backpack New York hip hop with a little bit of jazz thrown in there. It's a very easy listening project. I think a lot of the beats are pretty chill. There's some of their simple loops, but you also have Messiah Music doing some crazy stuff on some of these tracks. Some of the stuff I'm more used to. Cavalier has a pretty great reputation when it comes to just like keeping it different on this record. He definitely doesn't get stale. I think I had that problem with the Luca record that came out this year. Is like he was a lot more one note than I was expecting. But Cavalier has a very nice, distinct delivery on a lot of these songs. Some of them he sounds like Denzel Curry a lot in the way that his voice sounds, which I was very intrigued by because any of the features I've heard him on, I did not get that at all. But some of these songs, I'm like, this could be a Denzel song if he was like making underground New York rap, um, which was interesting. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a vibe. I think lyrically he is pretty decent too. Um, the record definitely just like takes on nostalgia, and it feels like kind of like summer vacation when you're like a kid and just like exploring random places. That's kind of the vibe I get from a lot of these tracks. It's fun. It's varied. He has a lot of fun with it. He doesn't go like too seriously or conceptual. I think when it comes to a debut on a bigger label, he has definitely stepped up for this one. Um, and yeah, it is definitely one of the better hip hop records this year. I think Pitchfork gave this an 8, surprisingly. So
Oh.
they don't do that with a lot of hip hop records at all. So if you're into any of that New York hip hop, more of like I don't want to say lo-fi hip hop, but like a little bit more chill, kind of Alchemist style. This is definitely one to not miss because it did turn out pretty well. Um, and it's always good to see a new artist come to Backwoods and like successfully deliver like a great project. Um, I think that Backwoods is definitely that New York underground label that is making a lot of moves, um, and it's always good to see. So yeah, I don't even know what favorite tracks are in here. I feel like Custard Spoon was great. There's a track Yeah Boy that samples the Yeah Boy guy, which is really cool.
Awesome.
It has like these like small undertones of like Chance the Rapper cheesiness to part of it. That's like kind of nostalgic and silly, but without going too over the top like Chance the Rapper does often. So I think that was another part of it where I was like, yeah, I enjoy this. Um, I think what was that one I liked? Manigals. I think that one's my favorite track out of this. But yeah, really great record. If you're into hip hop, don't miss it. It's definitely going to be one of the more slept on ones this year. Um, but yeah, that was that. Oh yeah, Chance the Rapper got divorced. By the way, I don't know if people saw this or we
What?
talked about.
We talked
Um,
about it not on the podcast.
not on the podcast. Yeah, Chance the Rapper got divorced.
I'm
This is
literally
very sad
crying
for me
for
because
you.
how do I listen to the Big Day now? You know,
You were listening to the Big Day before.
I was just so happy for him and his wife. You know,
This changes
now I don't know what to
everything.
think. The world is turned upside down completely. but he has a new mixtape coming out. So
Is it the Small
uh,
Day?
it's the I want to say it's the Star Room, but that's a Mac Miller song. It's got something to do with stars or something. He released a single last week, and I forgot to listen to it. But people have said it's pretty good, and I think I believe them because I did hear a couple of singles he dropped. I think last year or 2 years ago.
2022.
Um, yeah, that were supposed to be on that tape, and I think they probably are still. That I think were pretty great. Um, so this might be his comeback. Uh, I don't know how much he can really come back. I feel like Chance is from that mixtape era that just doesn't really work at all now today. So I think he's gonna have to kind of evolve his style to fit with that because otherwise, I think it's just gonna read across as kind of stale and outdated a little bit. Um, but we'll see how that goes. I'll definitely give it a listen. I don't know how much enjoyment I'll get out of it, but I'm gonna have a little bit of faith in my man. So yeah, it's just the turn of events that made that album age even worse than it could have, which is just really funny.
Yeah.
He has a really bad record of saying things on albums and just having them do the opposite. Famously on Ultralight Beam, he says, "I met Kanye West. I'm never gonna fail."
Oh yeah.
I think every part of that line aged poorly. So
That's true. I forgot about that.
yeah, um, yeah. Okay, I have one big one to talk about
Oh
last.
boy.
Okay, so this year has been full of. I've listened to a lot of records this year, actually. I think I'm up to like 30 something already. I think
Wow.
30, 35, 36, and it's only May. Um, I think last year I listened to about like 60. Oh, I'm almost caught up to last year already. Um, so the quantity has been great this year. I've been getting to a lot of new stuff, a lot of stuff I haven't heard,
Yeah.
but there hasn't been an album that's been like, that's the album. The
Until
Smile was
now.
really close. The Smile was really close. I think Wall of Eyes was really great. I just have not replayed it a whole lot. It's just not the most replayable thing in the world to me. Other than that, I think Adrian Linker's
Mm,
Bright Future is phenomenal.
it's so
That
good.
record is great.
Yeah.
But I haven't had one where it's like, yes, this is it. Um, so I think the story of this record is going to be as great as the music about it, and I think that adds to the experience. Um, oh, I forgot one song. Oh my god, Tom York. How did I forget you? Okay, we'll go back to my funny storytelling. Uh, Tom York released a soundtrack for Confidenza, a new movie. I don't know what the movie's
I've
about or
never
anything.
heard
I
of
think it's
that.
Italian. I
Oh,
think it's an Italian movie.
that makes sense.
But he released a soundtrack for it, and I have not listened to the soundtrack, but I've listened to Knife Edge from the soundtrack, and it is really, really, really good. Um, Classic Tom York piano lullaby piece. That's all I need in my life. So that was really great. I'll probably check out the rest of the soundtrack. I am glad that the soundtracks that he makes are really good, and you can listen to them without even knowing what the movie is. Um,
They do
on a
Suspiria.
roll. Yeah, Suspiria.
Suspiria,
I
and
don't
did he
even
do
know what
Phantom
Suspiria
Thread?
is, but
Oh, it's a witch
um,
movie. I
I
don't
don't know.
remember. He's done stuff with Paul Thomas Anderson before.
Yes. Yeah.
Or did Paul
They
Thomas Anderson
also
do like the album movie for like Anima something?
yes, he did do that.
Yeah.
I know they work together on a lot of music videos.
Yeah.
So they are definitely buddy buddy.
That's cool.
Um, yeah. The Radiohead also made a Bond theme, but they didn't choose it in the end. They should have. It was the best song. But
Cowards. Did they
I
choose
know.
Adele instead?
I think they did. Yeah.
That's a good song.
It is a good song. Yeah. I just like the Radiohead one a little bit better.
That's
But
fair
Adele
enough.
is fantastic. But yeah, I'm glad they're doing soundtracks. Like him and Johnny are doing a lot of soundtracks, and they're very good at it. Which shouldn't be a surprise considering what their catalog sounds like. But
Yeah.
I'm
I've
just
heard
glad
Kid
we
A.
get that much of an outpouring. I've heard Kid A. They can make a soundtrack. Okay, that was the one I missed. Going back to this. Okay, so I think I found my album for this year.
Oh boy.
And the way that I found it was, I think, the best part of it, and why part of it, why it is why it like resonates so heavily.
Okay.
So this came out a month ago, and I have not really seen anything about it at all. Um, After finding out about it, all of a sudden, like now I'm seeing it everywhere. Obviously, that's how the internet works. It's just crazy how it works every time. But I found this on a random, like I was scrolling through Instagram and like you'll get recommended posts. And I saw this record in a recommended post
Mm.
randomly. Um, so I was a little interested in it because the cover looked like I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. And I saw the little write up about it and I'm like, okay, this sounds very interesting. And what intrigued me was it was only available on YouTube or GeoCities. Uh,
GeoCity? Wait, that's still a thing?
yes. Yes.
Oh,
um, they got the website up. I don't, GeoCities is closed down in the US, but if they got the website up.
huh.
Don't know how they did it, but it's there. So you go to this janky looking GeoCities webpage that looks like it was made in 2009. And you have the album cover, and you have the link to the YouTube video, and you have a mega file with the wave files to download. That's the
Wow.
only way you can listen to this record. So my girlfriend got a new job, and now she's like working on Saturdays. So I
Mm.
have the house alone, and I'm like, what do I do with myself? So I just downloaded this 2 hour album. It's 2 hours, 32 songs. Um, I just downloaded a mega of random wave files and just put it on, hit play, and just saw what happened. And the sound of this record definitely fits the way that you have to access it. I feel like if this was just readily available on streaming services, it would not hit as hard. Um, so the record I'm talking about is Diamond Jubilee by Cindy Lee. Um,
Oh,
I will go into that as well. Um, but the record's sound is if you take 60s pop, 60s rock and roll, like classic rock and roll, some soul stuff, a lot of that kind of sound from that era, and you push it through um, with some like noisy guitars, some kind of duster ish lo fi magic to it,
mm.
and stretch it out to 2.5 hours with two complete albums. Um, So Cindy Lee is the drag persona of forgot their name. I think it's Kevin's no Patrick Flegel. Um, so it's their drag persona that they make music under.
Okay.
I think they were
Huh.
formerly in two other bands that were like noise rock and post punk. Um, but this record was, I think it's their last one. They're doing a farewell US tour right now.
Mm.
This one had no singles, no lead up at all. It just popped up on the internet. Um, and what's inside of it is just like magical. Like I was having such a good time and I was just constantly blown away that I went through 32 songs and was not bored for a single second. Um, it's really it's like a very dreamy kind of hazy, almost like Cocktail Twins feeling experience, except the music doesn't sound like it at all. It like seamlessly drifts from different movements to different movements. You'll have like a I thought they were sampling 60s like pop music from the radio for like the first 30 minutes of the record because I'm like this sounds exactly like it would in the era and it sounds like you're like outside of a gas station in Nevada just like sitting in your chair looking out and you have this like portable radio next to you playing stuff. That's exactly what this sounds like. Um, but then you have these like beautifully layered guitars, and the way they play guitar is so brilliant. The emotion they get out of it, it was reminding me of like Jimi Hendrix esque like psychedelic rock. Um, and the vocals are just incredible. I mean, we just finished the Fallout series, and I'm like, this is the exact feeling that that series gives in music form.
Mm.
It feels like you're just like putting on the radio in that game and exploring. Um, and it's a pretty like it puts me in a fantastic mood. It is incredibly refreshing, even though it's like it sounds like a dusty cassette you'd find in your grandma's attic and like put on randomly. Um, but without like all the eeriness that would come with that usually when it comes to like distortion and everything. It's like it's a very feel good, nostalgic for an era that does not exist type
Mm.
record. It's very like kind of David Lynchy kind of feel the way that Twin Peaks soundtrack is, where it's a bit
Sure.
dreamy, it's a little bit grounded, but it's a little bit abstracted. Um, But yeah, it is a incredible record. I've listened to it I think 3 times all the way through since Saturday. Um, and every time this happens, Fantano posted a review of it today. I'm like, dang it, can I get one thing out before you can? And it took him a month to do it too. But people still have not seen it a lot yet. There's less than 100 ratings for it on Album of the Year so far.
Wow.
Which I think was the crazy part. It's just like finding this thing randomly and like committing to like, yeah, this is how I'm gonna spend my afternoon. It's gonna a complete gamble. I'm just downloading this random file and putting it on, and then this what's being inside is just like it was a really really. I felt a lot more connected to the body of work instead of just like typing something in the search bar on Spotify and having everything accessible right away. I think going through the effort for this record was worth it because of the sound of it and the concept of it like matches perfectly to what you're hearing. Um, I think they are going to do a vinyl release, a 3 LP release
Whoa.
of this once the tour is done because it is 32 songs. So I will definitely be buying that as soon as possible. The only way you can pay for this record right now is to directly send it to their PayPal, um,
That's
which I think
crazy.
pays out more than anything than that Bandcamp or anything does with rates. So, yeah, incredible record. Please check it out. It is very accessible through YouTube. You just look up the album title and it's there. Um, it's a really 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 great experience. I mean, you could have it as background music. You could really get into it if you'd like to. Um, but I think there's a little bit of something for everybody in there. There's this weird. It's one of those records where it's very difficult to talk about. I kind of just have to talk about everything surrounding it.
Sure.
But talking about the actual music is really difficult. Um, but yeah, this thing absolutely blew me away. I think it definitely holds the top spot of this year. By a little bit of a margin. And the
Mm.
smile was definitely like that one that was to beat, and this one kind of cleared it by a lot. Um, so yeah, definitely check it out. I'm sad that Fantano posted before we get the podcast out. I thought I was
Right.
cool. But I mean, he gave it an 8, so you know
Hey, that's pretty good.
that's pretty good. So I'm sure this record will get a lot more reception now as his influence kind of builds out.
Sure. It's a
I can
yellow
see this
flannel.
being Fantano core, but at the same time, I don't really think it is. I don't know. It's not pretentious in any
It
way.
doesn't sound
It's just
like it,
really nice.
the way
No,
you're describing it.
yeah. But yeah, it was just a really cool experience. Just like chilling on a Saturday, like right as the storm's coming to, and I'm like, I need something to
Mm,
chill out with.
that's like
And
perfect.
finding this record, yeah, and you find it on a GeoCities website of all places, and I have to like actually download it to WAV files. And then I liked it so much that I had to convert all those WAV files to MP3s so I could port it into Spotify as local files and do all that. So it takes effort to do it, but I think it's definitely worth it. And I think that helps the record too because you can't consume it like you can with a lot of streamable music. You have to like actually seek it out and go like take even if it's only 5 minutes of work. It's that extra step that takes you that makes you like want to listen to the whole thing. Be like, all right, I did this. Like I need to see this thing through. Um, so yeah, definitely check it out. I know some people absolutely hate it. I've been seeing reviews where it's like, "What is this? There's like nothing happening here." um, but I mean, some people are just gonna be like that. You're not gonna, you're not always gonna like everything.
Yeah,
Um,
that's fine.
but I think the Rate Your Music crowd definitely was on this when it came out because I think it has like 7,000 ratings on that site and it only has 100 on Album of the Year.
Wow.
Um, which usually when Rate Your Music is very hot on something, I definitely question it a little bit, even though my taste still does line up with them. I just think they're really annoying over there. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, check it out. Even if you don't want to dive into the like the full record, I think Listen to Kingdom Come. I think it's track 12 on the first disc. Listen to that one because that's going to be kind of the vibe of the whole record. I think that is just like it's a strong song. Um, I think the outro, 24/7 Heaven on the last disc too, was just incredible. So yeah, check that out. It was just a really cool experience, similar to you going to a theater and seeing a black and white movie. It's just it goes back to this like
Yeah,
you get this really nice and warm feeling where it's like I feel like I really appreciated something in the format it's supposed to be appreciated in.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, I'm looking
yeah,
at this website. It's
it
perfect.
is. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I think that's it. I do want to talk about the student encampments, but I think I'm going to save that for next week because I know I do updates on those things as things have been going forward. I haven't given one in a while because there hasn't been like a major moment. But I will plan on doing that next week when we have more time because this podcast was packed with stuff.
A lot of stuff.
But yeah, there's a lot of developments happening there, and I'm sure there'll be even more next week. So I will cover that next week for any of those that are interested.
All right.
But I think that's it for me.
All right. Well, perfect. Yeah. Do you think I would like this album?
You might. You might.
Okay. I'll listen to the track that you suggested.
Kingdom Come.
Okay.
I think you would find there's like some soft rock and like vintage elements to it that I think you'll like.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what my album of the year is. I guess it is probably that Adrian Lenker.
Yeah, that one's really good.
I'm trying to think. We had a lot. I'm trying to think of what came out.
The Caroline Polachek Deluxe, which I don't know if I count. It's still really good though.
We have Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, Adrian Lenker, MGMT.
Oh yeah, MGMT. Lizzie.
Geet.
Oh yeah, I
Lil
forgot
Sims.
about Yeet. Yeah. Well, Lil Sims is not making the list, unfortunately.
No.
Sorry, Little Sims.
She still made a better album than J. Cole and Kanye West, though. But she's still in the bottom 3 of this year.
Wait, J. Cole and Kanye made an album?
No, 2 separate ones. But they're definitely worse than Little Sims. My bottom 3 for this year rating so far goes Kanye, then J. Cole, then Little Sims, which is crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah. Little Sims is... It's unfortunate that she's in the same echelon as Kanye.
He'll come back, though.
Yeah.
It was just an EP. I don't care that much.
Yeah. It's fine. As long as the next album is full of bangers.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
I have no reason to doubt her still.
No. I'm just excited. I'm like, I was excited when I heard that she was dropping, and then I'm like, oh.
Yep.
Well, now I just want her back on the album game. The last 2 have been great.
She is on a hot streak.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing this week?
This week, we are doing Slow Pulp Yard.
Yep.
A great record. I'm not sure how many views it's going to get.
Well.
I've been going back
and last week, so they can deal with a couple of other stuff.
That's true. I've been like, do I want to do movies? But I really like Yard more than movies. But is this something I'm gonna look back on and be like, oh, I should
probably do both eventually.
Yeah. But for some reason, I've been thinking back, and I'm like, we definitely did the wrong James Taylor album, and I think we did the wrong Jim Croce album. Not that that really matters, but like I've just been thinking about it recently, where I'm like, I was only gonna get one shot to do those 2 artists specifically, and I think I picked the wrong albums for both of them.
Oh well.
Just something to put in my obituary, I guess. I
feel like I enjoy those records a bit more than I did at the time, but.
And I don't remember you hating them.
No, I don't. I just don't go back to them too much.
Yeah.
I think they were both solid.
I think so. I don't really listen to them regularly, but sometimes I play Fire and Rain on my guitar or whatever.
Of course.
You know, it's a classic.
Yeah. I'm glad this album kind of like snapped me out of my I was like listening to all 90s and early 2000s stuff, and I felt like a really weird millennial version of myself. I was listening to like just Blur and the Microphones and like Ride. I feel like such like a 90s like punk jacket wearing like millennial,
a Thrasher kid.
Yeah.
Well, now you're listening to Dragcore?
Dragcore 60s rock and roll nostalgia.
It's nostalgic in a different decade, I suppose.
Yeah,
One that you have no nostalgia for.
exactly.
But Taylor
And one
Swift
that wasn't
does.
even really that great either. So
No.
yeah, we didn't talk about Taylor Swift at all because that came and went. We didn't have a podcast.
That's
But
true. Yeah.
yeah, um, I don't really have anything to say besides the fact that she definitely like I don't know. She kind of ruined Record Store Day for me, honestly.
Really?
Because that record came out the day before, and there was lines out the door for
Oh,
her
for
record
her
at my
record.
local record shop, and
Yeah.
then the day after, like the line was so incredibly long.
It's a shame.
I don't know. All these variants and all that garbage. I think there was like 25 listed variants for the record for physical release, and I was just a little bit disgusted.
That
Um,
is kind of gross. But doesn't
yeah,
Travis
I think
Scott do
Billie
that too?
Eilish. He does, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Taylor Swift is the biggest culprit, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Her writing on that record was really mid. I'm not listening to it because I can't put myself through that.
Yeah.
I don't know, especially with the anthology, like 2 hours long. It's like I don't need that. I'm
I
kind of over it.
yeah.
I've been exposed to so much Taylor Swift against my will. Just working with PR people that are millennials, and
Yeah.
I've had enough. So
Yeah. I think it's just like for me, because I like Folklore and Evermore quite a bit.
no, yeah, they're very solid albums.
Yeah. But man, everything post that has been like it feels exactly the same. It feels like she
Hmm.
has five like song templates that she just writes lyrics for. But then like this like tortured poet like I don't know. It's like you're from like the
I
suburbs.
I
Like
thought it was being ironic, but like
is
when I
it?
found out the writing on it is like not ironic, and the whole record like sounds like that kind of style of writing, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah. It's just like if it was ironic, then okay. But like she's like so self-serious. And it's
yeah,
like if Elliot Smith wanted to name something the tortured poet department, it's still kind of cringy, but at least it's
it
like
is definitely
okay.
still cringy, but yeah,
But it's like okay, that guy was going through some stuff. It would
yeah,
have to be something like that. It still would be a little weird, but it's like more acceptable. But you know,
yeah.
upper,
I just hate how like there was more marketing for this than there was like for the Super Bowl. Like you see it everywhere.
yeah.
Um,
I I got
it
2 emails from Spotify, and I don't listen to
yeah,
Taylor Swift.
yeah. I mean, it's on my freaking Roku TV. Like I can't even
Oh
like watch
yeah,
the nice little advert,
yeah.
screensaver without her being all over it.
Man, I really hate the commercialization of Roku City.
I really do too. They add more and more, and I get sad every time. Like they gentrified Roku City,
It was
and
the best.
it was the best.
It
It
was
was
like,
nice and chill, and
oh, there was so
now they
many like
ruined it.
Easter eggs, to, like
You can't have nothing
movies.
no more.
Yeah, and they're like
Um,
ads for Hosier.
everywhere. But yeah, I don't know. The whole like weird like hardcore racism towards Beyonce too from a certain
Oh,
sect of the Taylor Swift fandom has been really disgusting.
yeah,
I don't understand the whole. I don't know. I feel like the fan base has gotten way too big, and it's just becoming one of those where it's like everybody's gonna start getting a little bit weirded out more than they already are.
yeah. But I mean, like that's not her fault.
It's not her fault, and it's not specific to her either.
No,
Um, but it doesn't help your case.
no, no.
When you have writing this like really bad, and people are like trying to defend it, it comes across really weird. It sound it, I feel like the internet increasingly these days just looks like it feels like you're just arguing with children.
Mm,
Um, so
yeah.
I try not to like look at any of that anymore because it doesn't really do anything. Making me sad.
Yeah, luckily, like my Twitter or whatever isn't really full of that. Um,
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like they were pushing it through Twitter and Instagram. Like I had not
yeah.
interacted with any of them, and they were pushed through both apps, especially Instagram.
Mm. See, maybe this is where I'm like, I'm not on Instagram at all.
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
probably a good thing.
well, yeah, I don't know. I just don't think there's anything for me there. But yeah, maybe that's why you're getting slammed with it more than I was. But
Yeah.
I was getting it slammed in person because My sister
Oh,
is
that sucks. Yeah.
a self-proclaimed. I don't know if she's a self-proclaimed Swiftie, but she's all about it. Um, yeah, I'm getting it all the time, but that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't
We're
care.
haters in this household.
It's really the only thing. I just think that she's like the most overrated artist in pop right now.
Absolutely. Is she good? Yeah. Is she
Yeah,
that good? Oh.
yeah. It's just like I don't know, because it seems like at least the big players in pop right now, like maybe like Dua Lipa and like The Weeknd, like they're
Mhm.
constantly like switching it up and trying new stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And she's just
And
like been
Abel's
in
down
this,
like donating $4 million to humanitarian aid.
yeah. Which speaking of, well, not speaking of the humanitarian aid, did you know that he's #1 on Spotify?
Yes.
Isn't that
Yeah.
weird?
He is weird. It is weird.
Why?
It's I don't know.
It's been like that for
He's
months.
I feel like he's had songs that have been on every single playlist for like years though.
True.
Like there's always going to be a weekend song on like any kind of playlist you make now.
That's true. It's just like the last album that he made was in 2022, and like
Mhm.
everything since then has been like songs for like the Idol or the Avatar song. And it's like
Yeah.
he just hasn't done anything in a hot minute. Like why is he #1? It doesn't I don't get it. But I don't know.
Yeah, it works in weird ways. There's a lot of artists in like the top 50 where I'm like, "Why?
Yeah, true.
This doesn't make sense."
That's true. I was just like, I looked it up the other day because I'm like, I'm sure Taylor Swift is #1 with a new album, and she was like 3 or something. And like, well, who's bigger? Who's bigger than Taylor Swift right now? And apparently it's The Weeknd, and that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Strange.
Ah,
We also have to talk about TikTok ban, but I'll do that next week too.
oh, TikTok ban, TikTok ban.
Okay.
I'm so scared. Do you think Soldier Boy's gonna buy it?
Probably not.
Did he say something about it?
He did. He's like, I want to buy TikTok.
I don't think.
You cannot afford TikTok.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think Soldier Boy can.
Yeah.
It would
They
be
don't
pretty
want you
cool.
to either.
Why not? What's wrong with Soldier Boy? He's not a trusted businessman?
They could probably control Soldier Boy. They could get him into some shady dealings.
He made the biggest game console of all time.
That's true. That's true. He's got street cred.
He's got street cred in the tech community.
Yes.
He did
Tech
sing.
sector.
Yeah, he did Kiss Me Through the Phone. It's like a big
Mhm.
BlackBerry link up back in the day.
Exactly. He
Yeah.
made ringtones popular, you know?
That's true. That's true. Before that, it was
Pioneer.
just the Big Ben song.
Yeah.
Whatever that song's called. You know the one I'm talking about. Oh. Yeah. Okay, bye.